Now let's meet two of the really complex bones of the skull, the sphenoid bone and the ethmoid bone. The sphenoid bone kind of looks like a bat, okay, and it sits behind the eyes and extends out and meets with the frontal bone, a little bit of the parietal and the temporal bone. Also articulates with the occipital bone down here, okay, so it goes like behind the eyes, makes this front part of the cranium there. This is what the sphenoid bone looks like by itself. Because it has these sort of wing-shaped things that stick out, these are actually called the wings. It has a pair of greater wings here and here, and then the lesser wings here. Okay, and this is these are not attached here. It looks like they are, but they're not. Okay, we also have, let's see, behind the lesser wings, we have the sella turcica, which is this little cup-shaped marking here, where the pituitary gland sits. So the pituitary gland controls your hormones. It sits in this little pocket, so it's very, very well protected. Okay, and just to remind you, we are looking down on the sphenoid bone from the top of the skull. We took the top off. We also have the foramen ovale and the foramen spinosum, which you can see from the bottom of the skull there and there. You can also see them from the top, okay, from the interior skull. And then we can't quite see the optic canal. It's going to go through this part, opening to the orbit and carry the optic nerve, bringing signals from the eye. So this is the posterior view. Okay, imagine we took the back off the skull and we're looking forward. This basilar part right here articulates with the occipital bone. And then we have the optic canal here, here, and here for our optic nerve. And then here, we have the superior orbital fissure on either side. This sits between the greater wing and the lesser wing on each side. The superior orbital fissure, it's a fissure meaning a long, narrow hole, and it's in the orbit, so it's orbital, and it's superior, which means there's another one that's inferior to this one. The inferior orbital fissure is not on the sphenoid bone. It's between the sphenoid and another bone. Okay, so the only one we can see on the sphenoid bone is this superior orbital fissure. Okay, so that's that. When we look from the front of the skull, we can see that superior orbital fissure here. I'll give you another picture of that later that's better. All right, the ethmoid bone is this really funky looking bone. It sits right behind the nose. Okay, so right behind the bridge of the nose. And it's not really very clearly visible from anywhere on the skull. This is what it looks like from the top. It has these two cribriform plates. Cribriform, notice it's cribriform, means full of holes, having holes. Your olfactory neurons go through these holes down into the nasal cavity. Those cribriform plates sit on either side of this little ridge called the crista galli. You can see that little ridge here. This is from the front. You can see the cribriform plates here on either side of the crista galli. The crista galli sticks up through a little spot in a little notch in the frontal bone. Okay, and I'll show you another picture that'll show this more clearly. The other marking you need to know on the ethmoid bone is this one, the perpendicular plate, which hangs down perpendicularly from the cribriform plates. Okay, so the cribriforms go this way, perpendicular go this way. And then the rest of the ethmoid bone is mostly sinuses and plates that create those sinuses. So lots of airflow through this bone. We also have the superior nasal concha on either side here. Remember that whenever you see CH in anatomy terms, it sounds like a K. There are going to be 3 nasal concha on either side of the nasal cavity, superior, middle, and inferior. Superior and middle are actually both going to be made by the ethmoid bone. The middle is kind of hard to see here. And then the inferior is a separate bone. We'll come to that in a minute. So this is the superior ethmoid bone, and this is the superior ethmoid bone sticking through that notch in the frontal bone. So the frontal bone comes along here, goes up like that, and then there. So this part, these are the lesser wings of the sphenoid bone, okay? That comes up against the back of the ethmoid bone. Okay, so hopefully that helps you sort of orient yourself around that. All right, so we learned all of these bones of the cranium now. We've got the frontal bone, singular, one sphenoid bone, one ethmoid bone sitting there. So you can only see the ethmoid when you take the face off. Then we have the temporal bone, two of those, one on either side, parietal bone, two, one on either side, and then one occipital bone. And then we have the sutures, the squamous suture, coronal suture, lambdoid suture, parietal suture between the two parietal bones, sagittal suture between the parietal bones. And then sometimes we also see little bones like this called sutural bones. Sutural bones are literally just little bones that filled in spaces in the suture. So they're little extra bones. You may have them, you may not. Some skulls have several, some have none. But what happened was, as these bones sewed together, as these sutures closed, sometimes there were large spaces and a separate little bone actually formed there. So that's what a sutural bone is. So that is all of the bones of the cranium. And in the next segment, you will learn about the facial bones.